DFS was created to resolve several issues that are problematic when sharing files on a network with multiple file servers. Three of the primary problems are: 1. Having files spread across multiple file servers confuses users and makes it difficult for them to find their files. 2. Sharing files in a single location creates performance lag when they are accessed across slow WAN links, and a single point of failure when those WAN links go down. 3. It is difficult to back up critical files and data when they are dispersed haphazardly on multiple file servers at multiple remote locations. To solve these problems, DFS implements two core technologies, among others, DFS Namespaces and DFS Replication. Let's look at the first of these, DFS Namespaces. A DFS namespace is a virtual directory tree that references or points to one or more actual shares on the network called targets. When a user searches for a file in a DFS namespace, all the servers that are a part of that namespace are searched. Were it not for the namespace, the user would have to check each server individually for the file. When someone requests access to a file in a virtual DFS directory tree, a referral is returned rather than the actual file. The referral specifies the file's location on one of the DFS namespace's servers. The DFS client making the request then retrieves the file from the referred server. DFS namespaces can be set up in two modes, standalone and domain-based. Let's look at the features of the standalone option. 1. It's accessed via the server's name, that is the host name, and then the name of the DFS root. 2. It can be a domain controller, a member server, or a standalone. 3. It only supports one namespace. 4. It's stored in the registry and system cache, not Active Directory. And 5. Active Directory is not required. Let's take a look at the next option, domain-based. 1. It's accessed not via the host name, but the domain name, and then / the DFS root. It can be a domain controller or a member server, but not a standalone server. It supports multiple namespaces. It's stored in Active Directory instead of locally in the system registry. And of course, Active Directory is required. Let's take a look at DFS Replication. DFS Replication is a multi-master replication service that maintains copies of shared files and folders on multiple servers throughout an organization. This means that files and folders are duplicated, updated, and synchronized by the service on a regular basis. If a file is created, deleted, or modified on one server, the same thing automatically occurs at all the other servers in the DFS namespace. The combination of DFS namespaces and DFS replication provides the following advantages over traditional file sharing. 1. This implements fault tolerance for file servers. If a server fails, the files in the virtual DFS namespace are still available on the network via the remaining servers. 2. This addresses lag and bandwidth issues over slower WAN links, since servers must be kept at each remote location that are a part of a DFS namespace. Clients at those locations may access the files on servers locally at high speed, rather than over a slow WAN link. To enhance its bandwidth-saving virtues further, a DFS uses the RDC, a remote differential compression protocol, to conserve more bandwidth by only replicating data that has changed in a file since its last replication rather than the entire file. 3. This maintains folder and file conformity across an entire organization. Changes made at remote locations are replicated and synchronized everywhere. 4. This simplifies backing up and restoring files, folders, and data. The entire virtual directory tree and all its targets can be backed up and restored as a single entity. 5. The DFS namespace promotes load balancing akin to clustering and round-robin DNS. That is, if one particular target server is too busy to service a request, other available target servers in the virtual directory tree can respond instead. Let's overview the basic process for setting up a distributed file system namespace. First, we'll open Server Manager. We'll add roles, file services, distributed file system, DFS namespaces, and DFS replication. We'll enter the name of the DFS share, select the namespace, and install. This is of course assuming we've shared the directories already that we want to include in the DFS namespace. If not, we can do it there from within the wizard. This brings us to Section B, adding folders to the DFS. For this, we'll open DFS Management from Administrative Tools. We'll right-click a namespace and select New Folder. We'll enter the folder name and click Add. When the Add Folder Target dialog pops up, we'll select the target and share out the folder. This brings us to Section C. If we set up the DFS namespace and we've configured the folders we want to share, now we're ready to configure the referral order. If you have more than one target server in a DFS namespace share, you need to configure the referral order. The share will refer clients to a local server first. If one is not available, it will then refer servers in the order that you specify. If the closest target is unavailable, the next closest one will be used. If the option Client Failback is enabled, when a closer target server that was previously unavailable becomes available again, it will be the one referred. Now let's take a look at setting up DFS Replication. You enable DFS Replication among multiple target servers by placing each target server in a replication group. By default, replication groups use full mesh topology, where every server replicates with each of its partners. Larger networks may opt for hub-spoke topology. By default, DFS replication is bidirectional, but this default can be modified. Each DFS replication group designates a server known as the primary member. Files on the primary member will overwrite all others in the replication process. Let's look at setting up shared directories on a local server and also using a DFS namespace in a distributed file system. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm on a domain controller in a domain Battlestars and hostname Galactica. I'm going to make a folder here called Galactica Data. And I'm just going to go ahead and share it. And I'm just going to do I'll add the everyone group and give read permission. So I have a basic share there. Okay, so you can see everyone has read permission, and on the DACL I'm going to go ahead and add everyone. Same thing, give them read permission. And notice if I were to access that, I could type in the UNC path and the host name of my server, and there appears my share. And I'm also just going to add some empty files in here, things that we can browse later. Okay, so I've created a share here. Now, this is a domain controller. I'm going to hop on over to a member server, not Galactica, but Pegasus, and we'll do the same thing. We'll create a share. So now I'm on the Pegasus, and I'm going to go over here to my C partition and do the same thing. I want to make a new share, so I'm going to create a folder and call it Pegasus Data. I'm going to right-click, Properties, and I'm going to select Sharing, Advanced Sharing, Share this folder, Permissions. I just want to give everyone the basic read permission. Go to the Security tab, DACL, let me add an access control entry, throw in everyone there, and okay, and again I'll just give basic read permission. Right, and I'm logged into the domain, but you can see, it's not a domain controller, it's just a member server that is joined to the domain. So in other words, yes, it's part of battlestars.galaxy, but it's not a domain controller, it's a member server. And the same holds true if I were to type in the host name. I would get my directory share. Okay. And before we move on, I'm just going to make, again, a couple empty files in there so we can see. Alright, so some empty files in that share. Back on the Galactica, and now I want to set up a distributed file system. So to create a DFS namespace, first I need to open up Server Manager. And since I already shared out my directories locally to show you what that looks like, when I go to Roles and Add Roles, and then I'm going to select Server Roles, notice that it's grayed out because File Services is already installed. When I made that first share, File Services was installed to make that local share. So if you didn't follow my example and you didn't create the shares yet, then this will be black. It won't be grayed out, and you should take that option and go ahead and install it. But I don't need to do that since I already set my shares up. But what I do need to do is go over here to Roles and File Services, and I'm going to right click, say Add Role Services, and I want to select Distributed File System. And make sure that DFS Namespaces and DFS Replication are also selected. I'm going to click Next, and now I can name my DFS namespace. I'll just call it Colonial Fleet. And notice that since it's a domain controller and I'm in a domain, it's a domain-based namespace that was selected by default. And so the UNC path would be my domain name, battlestars.galaxy, / and then my virtual directory in the DFS share, Colonial Fleet. If this were a standalone server, I could choose this option, and rather than my domain name, it would be my host name, the name of the server, and again, the virtual directory or share. So I'm going to go with the domain option here, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Next. On this screen, I can add my shares, and if I've already created them, I can just go here and select the folder target from the server. Notice that here's my server Galactica, and I could also browse for Pegasus. I'm going to do the local one first. I could say show shared folders, since I've already created one. There's Galactica data. If I had not, I could choose this option, new shared folder. I could go and create that, and then I could also make a new folder here. I just think it's easier if you make the shared folders first. I don't know, it's a matter of preference. It's up to you how you want to do it, but either way, the outcome is the same. So I'm going to go ahead and select OK and OK. And notice that'll add it to the directory tree. Okay, and then I'm going to add one more here, and I want to browse to a target. And this time I'm going to browse, and let me look at locations, and let me look at computers. And I'm going to go here and here. And here are the computer account objects I have in Active Directory. So I want to select this one, Pegasus. Okay. And then under Pegasus data is the share that I want to add into my DFS namespace. So you'll notice that I'm consolidating or aggregating. I have two different shares on two different servers. But when we set up the DFS namespace, they'll be accessible via simply one name, right? One pointer pointing to those various locations. I'm going to go ahead and click Next. I'm going to go ahead and click Install. Alright, and the installation has succeeded. And I'm going to go ahead and click Close. And at this point I'm done, so let's go test it out. I'm on the Windows 7 Workstation Starbuck now, and it's a part of the domain, and it's this time I'm going to access first off the local shares that we created. So here's the local share on Galactica. Okay. And notice that this is the actual DFS share, and it points to both. So I can still access the local share, but that's only on that one particular server. And if I wanted to, I could access the local share directly off of hostname Pegasus. There's Pegasus data. But if I want to get the DFS namespace share, I would just type in the domain name, battlestars.galaxy, and it would be up here where I have Colonial Fleet. Okay, and I just noticed the UNC path right here, battlestars.galaxy Colonial Fleet, but that combines and aggregates all of the file shares on both of those servers. So imagine, if you will, I had a dozen file servers on my network. This makes things much more easily searchable, usable, a lot more friendly for my users, for the people on my network, because they don't have to go hunting and pecking in every single server to find the files they're looking for. They can simply access the DFS share, and that sort of aggregates all those servers in different shares, different virtual directories. Nice feature. My DFS is installed. I can go ahead and use a management console or a snap-in, and then it's DFS management. And I already made a shortcut here. But if I open it, I can go to my namespaces and notice it lists my Colonial Fleet. There's my Battlestars.Galaxy Colonial Fleet share. And here are the actual shares, showing the UNC path, and there's the host name of the server and the shares that they're on. And I could go and add new folders, bring up this wizard and add new servers if I wanted to. I could remove some of these shares if I want to. Delete them from the pool or from the virtual directory. And I could create, I could configure more DFS namespaces if I wanted to, all from this tool. So we configured a DFS namespace, and that had the net effect of taking multiple shares on different servers and concatenating or combining them together. But it's not the same thing as replication. Right now there are just two separate copies of files, so if I make changes to the files on Pegasus, it's not really going to affect the files on Galactica and vice versa. In order to modify that, we need to set up file replication services, and then they'll be able to synchronize. Now that was already installed and configured on Galactica when I went through it and configured file services in the DFS namespace. But I'll need to add that to every other server that's part of my DFS namespace that I want to engage in the replication process. So let's go do that right now to the member server Pegasus. So to install file replication services, again I must open Server Manager. Now since I created a local share, it will have installed some of the features of file services, but not all of them. So specifically I need to add file replication services. And the server's running pretty slow here, but let me get it there. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Add Role Services. And the one that I really need is DFS Replication. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Next and Install. It's a multi-master replication engine in my distributed file system. Okay, installation succeeded. And now that I have that set up, I'm going to go back on over to Galactica and set up a replication group. So I'm back on Galactica, and I want to open up DFS Management. And I want to go to Replication here. I'm going to configure a new replication group. And I'm going to select Multipurpose Replication Group and click Next. The name of the replication group, Colonial Fleet, an optional description, a ragtag fugitive fleet. Make all this caps here. And I'll select the domain. I need to add my servers, and so and let me go ahead and add in the Pegasus. Okay, so I've added them both, and they both have file replication services running on them. I'm going to select Next. Notice I can choose between full mesh and no topology. The default is full mesh, and that's fine. Bandwidth, I'm going to select full. And then the primary member, this is the one who's dominant. Okay, so let's say that I'll choose Galactica, since that's kind of where I set up the namespace. And so whatever changes, if there are conflicts and changes are made on Galactica, it will override those changes made on Pegasus in the replication process. And then select a folder on the primary member that you want to replicate to other members of the replication group. Click Add. And then I'm going to go to here, and I'm going to go to Galactica Data. I'm going to say OK. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and select Next. And the local path where the replicated folder will be stored on the other members of the replication group. Okay, and in this case, member Pegasus, member status disabled, enabled, Keep the following folder synchronized with other members, and I'm just going to choose the path of the folder. And this is on Pegasus. I'm just going to make a folder called Galactica Data. Alright, Galactica Data. And then I'll select that folder. Alright, and that's so the relative, the absolute path on Galactica relatively be the same absolute path on Pegasus as well. Next, and then we'll go ahead and create. Okay, and then close. Replication will not begin until the configuration is picked up by the members of the replication group. The amount of time this takes depends and on the polling interval. And then, so here's Colonial Fleet, and on both servers now they're going to have local folders that will be replicated to them. Okay, so and I could choose options here. If I wanted to add new members, new replicated folders, create a new topology, diagnostic report. There's a lot of different options and things here that we could get into. But that's just sort of a basic replication. And so now I'm going to go ahead and add a few files here on the Galactica. And this is my primary member. And I'm just going to say I'll just add some files in here. Okay. And we'll allow the replication process to synchronize these files. So these are on Galactica. Let's hop on over to Pegasus and see if File Replication Services is now replicating our shares. And then here we are on Pegasus, and there are all the files that we created on the Galactica. So File Replication Services successfully replicated those, to our other servers.